Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going to be talking about Purple United Sales Limited.
Okay.
It's an Indian kids wear company that's getting ready for an IPO, and we've got two sources for this. First, we have the draft Red Herring Prospectus,
Right.
and then we've also got a Dun& Bradstreet report on the entire Indian kids wear market.
Okay.
So hopefully by the end of this deep dive, you'll know whether Purple United's IPO is worth considering.
Sounds interesting. I'm particularly curious about how they plan to survive in that Indian kids wear market. Seems very competitive.
Yeah, and get this, one of their brands is called Toothless.
Oh,
I know.
wow.
Who names their brand Toothless? Especially for kids wear. What do you think?
Yeah, that definitely caught my attention too. I think they're probably going after the younger market with that, maybe toddlers, get some instant recognition and playfulness with the branding.
Makes sense. So Purple United focuses on clothing and footwear for kids up to 14 years old. They operate entirely in India, and they've got a mix of physical stores
Yeah.
as well as a strong online presence.
Hmm.
They're on Myntra, Amazon, Flipkart.
That's a smart move, especially in India. Their e-commerce market is growing so rapidly. That omni-channel approach, I think, will give them a real advantage.
Yeah, for sure. And they're really big on quality, which makes sense. Their flagship brand is called Purple United Kids, and they really stress this, especially with their lab-tested products.
Right.
I think that probably resonates with parents who are worried about, safety and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Safety and quality are huge in kids wear. Tapping into those parental concerns is a smart way to build trust. Makes them look like they are really conscious about quality.
For sure, yeah. Okay, let's look at their financials for a second. They've had consistent revenue growth, hitting 4,277.44 lakhs last fiscal year.
Wow.
Yeah. And their EBITDA margin's pretty healthy, which means good profitability.
Okay, but their debt to equity ratio is a little bit high.
Wow.
Yeah, it's at 1.79, which means they're using a lot of borrowed money, to finance their operations.
Yeah.
So that's something to keep in mind, definitely.
Yeah, that's a really good point. We'll have to see how they plan to manage that going forward. Speaking of going forward, they're planning to use the IPO proceeds to open up more stores, expand their online presence even more, and also to boost their working capital.
Oh, very ambitious. So both online and offline expansion, the question is, can they actually manage that effectively? Maybe they're overreaching a little bit.
Well, that's the million-dollar question. Now, their growth strategy is really centered on tapping into India's kids wear market. It's expected to reach USD 3.2 billion by FY 2030.
Wow.
Huge.
Yeah, it's a smart move. India's got such a huge population and the middle class is growing so fast. That's a lot of potential customers for them.
For sure. And they're not just relying on the market itself growing. They also plan to expand their product range, and they want to focus on building their brand.
That's important. A strong brand is key in such a competitive market. It's not just a logo. It's about making that connection with consumers, building that trust and loyalty.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, now this D&B report paints a really interesting picture of the Indian kids wear market. It looks like there's a growing preference for clothes in a Western style.
Interesting.
Yeah, but ethnic wear is still popular, especially for special occasions.
Ah, that makes sense. It reflects globalization and Western influence, but the cultural significance of traditional wear remains strong. So it seems Purple United needs to find a good balance between these trends.
Right, exactly. It'll be interesting to see how they do that. Now, speaking of challenges, they're facing pretty stiff competition, both from domestic brands and international brands,
Right.
including giants like Tommy Hilfiger, UCB, and Adidas.
Wow. Competing with those big players is tough. Purple United will need to really differentiate themselves, not just through quality, but with their designs, their pricing, their marketing. They need to create a unique identity.
Okay, let's take a look at some of the risks now. And these are straight from the prospectus.
The risk factors section of any prospectus is super important. Investors should always read it. It can really help you understand those potential downsides and avoid surprises down the line.
Right, great point. So some of the key risks they list
Yeah.
are competition, obviously, changes in consumer preferences, economic downturns,
Of course, yeah.
and then regulatory
Yeah,
changes.
yeah.
All of these could really impact their business.
And don't forget, this is Purple United's first IPO, right?
Right.
So investing in any IPO always comes with some uncertainty. There's no way around that.
Yeah, that's for sure. Okay, let's talk IPO details. They're planning to raise euro lakhs through the IPO. The floor price is set at euros per share, but that final price band, they haven't decided that yet.
So that means the final price could actually go higher than that floor price, depending on how much demand there is from investors. It'll be
Okay.
interesting to see how the market responds, especially given how aggressive they seem to be with those expansion plans.
Yeah. And the IPO is going to be open for bidding from dimes to
Hmm.
so that's the time frame when investors can place their bids for the shares.
Okay.
So if you're thinking about this IPO, that's the time to really make those decisions.
Right. It's fascinating, isn't it? This balancing act that Purple United has to pull off. Western wear versus ethnic wear.
Yeah, you're right. It's like a tiny version of this big cultural shift that's happening across India. Like you said, the younger generation, they're all into Western trends.
Yeah.
But those traditional clothes, they still matter. Weddings, festivals.
Right, exactly. And Purple United's got to find a way to appeal to both. It's like, how do you be modern and aspirational, but still respect those traditions? I think that's where really knowing the Indian market comes in handy for them.
Yeah, I think their brand strategy is going to be crucial here. Building an image that feels modern but still resonates with uh, Indian families.
Absolutely. And, this Dun& Bradstreet report really emphasized how dynamic this market is. It's constantly evolving.
Oh, yeah.
New trends popping up, new companies coming in, and then there's the whole online thing, too.
Yeah.
It's really a fascinating space to watch.
Makes you think about their omni-channel strategy,
Yeah.
right? And that's not just a fad. It feels like it's got to be like the bare minimum these days if you want to succeed.
For sure, you've got to be where your customers are. Online, offline, doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. But it's not enough to just, have a website or be
Yeah.
on Amazon.
Right.
You got to make that whole experience smooth,
Yeah.
right? From seeing something online to checking if it's in a store near you
Mm.
and then, going and buying it.
Yeah.
It's got to be seamless.
I agree. Completely agree. Okay, can we talk about the elephant in the room for a second? The competition?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I mean, Tommy Hilfiger, UCB, Adidas, those are some big names to go up against.
Yeah, it's almost like David and Goliath, right?
Totally. So Purple United, they really need to bring something unique to the table, something that speaks to Indian consumers beyond just the appeal of a big international brand.
Right. I guess that focus on lab-tested products, that's a good start.
It is, but it needs to go beyond that.
Yeah.
They got to tell their brand story really well. Like, what are their values? How do they understand Indian families? What makes them different from all the other brands out there?
For sure. In the prospectus, they talk about expanding their product range. I'm really curious to see what direction they go in.
Me too.
Will they focus even more on Western-style clothes, bring in more ethnic wear? Maybe they'll even try new categories like accessories, toys, who knows?
Right. That's going to be a key part of their growth strategy. Expanding those offerings can help them reach more customers, maybe even find new ways to make money. But they got to be smart about it. It all has to fit with their core brand identity.
Exactly. And it's one thing to make more products, but then, how do you get those products to all those new customers? I guess their marketing strategies got to evolve too.
Absolutely. They need to really understand those new groups of people they want to reach, their shopping habits, where they get their fashion ideas from, and then they got to tailor their messages to fit that.
It makes sense. One thing that I noticed in the prospectus was how much they emphasized building a strong online presence. They're really going all in on e-commerce.
Yeah.
Myntra, Amazon, Flipkart, you name it.
Smart move, the way e-commerce is growing in India.
Yeah, for sure. But like we were saying before, just being on those websites isn't enough.
Right.
It's got to be a good experience. The website needs to be easy to use, the mobile app too, and their social media's got to be engaging. It's almost like building another store, just a digital one.
And customer service, too. Can't forget about that.
Oh, yeah, good point.
Easy returns, fast shipping, quick responses. That stuff can really make or break your reputation online.
Absolutely, because online, people have so many choices. One bad experience, and they're off to the next brand.
Right. So it seems like Purple United gets it. They understand that a good online strategy needs all those pieces working together. The products, the platform, the marketing, the customer service. A lot to handle, but the payoff could be huge.
Speaking of a lot to handle, this draft red herring prospectus, man,
Yeah.
there's so much information in here. All these details about their business, the financials, the risks, their plans. It's all really overwhelming.
Well, it's meant to be thorough, right? They want to give potential investors a complete picture of the company. It's all about transparency so people can make good decisions about whether to invest or not.
Makes sense, but yeah, it can be a lot to take in all at once.
It is. It is. But hey, that's what we're here for, right?
That's right.
We break down the most important stuff, highlight those key takeaways, and hopefully make this whole thing a little bit easier to understand.
Exactly. We're like your guides, I guess.
Right. We point out the landmarks, maybe warn you about some potholes along the way, but ultimately, the decision about whether to invest or not, that's up to you.
Okay, let's get back to the numbers for a minute. I'm no finance whiz or anything,
Right.
but just looking at their revenue growth over the last few years, it seems pretty good.
It's definitely a positive sign. It shows they're bringing in more customers, selling more products, but like we were saying before, got to look at that in the context of their debt to equity ratio,
Oh,
which is a bit on the high side.
so even though revenue's going up, they're using a lot of borrowed money to make that happen. That's definitely a risk that investors got to think about.
Exactly. It's all about weighing those potential returns against the risks. And of course, you also got to consider how profitable they are.
Well, the prospectus says their EBITDA margin is pretty healthy. So it seems like they're managing costs well and making a decent profit.
That's a good sign. Means they're not just growing for the sake of growing. They're actually, doing it in a way that makes money. But there's a catch. They're planning to use some of the money from the IPO to pay down some of that debt.
Makes sense, right? Like they're acknowledging it and trying to get it under control.
It does, it does. But that also means less money for all those big growth plans they have.
Ah, I see.
It's a trade-off. Reduce the risk from all that debt, but maybe limit how much you can grow.
It's like a classic problem for companies that are trying to grow fast, right? I guess investors need to decide what's more important to them. Do they want a company that's going to go for broke and maybe make a lot of money? Or one that's a bit more steady and plays it safe?
Exactly. Everyone's got their own way of investing, their own goals. Some people are okay with taking bigger risks for bigger rewards. Others prefer things to be a little more predictable.
Yeah, it's looking like this IPO could be high risk, high reward.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see how people react to it. So as we wrap up this deep dive into Purple United and their IPO, I can't help but think about, how their whole business strategy is kind of tied to what's happening in India culturally. It's not just about selling kids clothes. It's like they're tapping into this feeling of a country that's moving forward.
Yeah, for sure. That focus on quality and those lab-tested products, that really stands out. It shows they get it. Parents are more and more concerned about safety and their kids' well-being.
Yeah. And it positions Purple United as this brand that's in tune with that. Like
Yeah.
they understand those priorities. But, there's something else I keep thinking about. The prospectus, it mentions ethical and sustainable practices, but it doesn't really go into much detail. I kind of wish we knew more about their supply chain, where they get their materials from, their environmental impact.
That's a great point. Even if the prospectus doesn't highlight it, those things are becoming more and more important for investors these days. It's like you want your investments to reflect your values,
see.
right? You want to support companies that are doing good.
Exactly. It all comes back to that question of what kind of future are you investing in? Are you just chasing profits, or are you saying, hey, I want to support businesses that care about people and the planet too?
Powerful question. Every investor should ask themselves that.
Hmm.
Our choices matter. We can use our investments to help build a better world.
Right. So as you're looking into Purple United or really any other investment, don't just focus on the numbers.
Yeah.
Think about the company's values, how they impact the environment and society, and what kind of future they're helping create.
We've given you a starting point, but now it's time for you to really dig in. Read those industry reports, check out their sustainability programs, compare them to their competitors, do your homework.
Exactly. Knowledge is power, especially when it comes to investing. The more you know about a company, their market, what they stand for, the better decisions you'll be able to make.
And remember, investing isn't just about making money. It's about supporting the kind of world you want to see.
Okay, so we've covered a lot today. We talked about Purple United's business, their financials, this exciting but competitive Indian kidswear market, and all those risks that are out there.
We looked at their growth strategy, how they're positioning their brand, and how important their online presence is going to be. A lot to think about.
And like always, we encourage you to do your own research. Dig deeper, ask questions, weigh those potential rewards against the risks. This is just the beginning of your deep dive into Purple United Sales Limited.
And hey, if this deep dive has got you thinking about ethical investing or the world of kidswear in general, that's great. Keep exploring those topics. There's a ton of information out there waiting to be discovered.
And that's it for this deep dive into Propel United's IPO. We hope you found it helpful and, most importantly, that it helps you make smart investment decisions. Until next time, happy investing.